So we've got this thing almost done. All the parts are assembled and shaped and fit, and we're ready to get everything all cleaned up and assembled and glued and all that. If you're just joining this series, you might want to go back and watch how we got here if you're curious. If not, we're in the middle of making a guitar string canister Damascus bunka, which is actually my favorite blade style. It's just really versatile for the kitchen. And because we use guitar strings for the pattern, decided to make a handle that looks like a fretboard. So with all that out of the way, let me go through the last steps we need to do to get this all ready for a glue up. First thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the threaded rod onto the tang, and from there I'm going to go ahead and get this all cleaned up to 400 or 600 grit. I haven't really decided yet. And I need to break the corners off of the spine and the finger choil. Don't ever forget to do this part, because that's what makes knives comfortable for the user. If you have these sharp edges right here, it kind of sucks. And then also I do it on the spine as well for anybody who wants to push while they're cutting on the top. It'll make it a nice comfortable spine to press on. And then we just have to etch this in coffee to bring out the awesome guitar string pattern. From there, I just need to sand this down a little bit. As you can see, we still have some raised up fret markers that need to come down, and then also this needs to be sanded up to about 1,000 grit. Need to clean up the bolster, the front edge of the bolster. Need to drill a hole in the back so that I can lock this all down with my Corby bolt. And then from there we can put the epoxy in, glue it up, and then we just have to clean up the butt end of this handle, and then it's basically done except for sharpening and a finish, a wax finish or an oil finish. So with all that in mind, let's get this thing done. So I just got to cut out a little notch for my threaded rod. Make sure that fits in there. Yeah, a little loose, but I'm okay with that. This is one of my favorite little tools. So I made this thing so that I could braze these little threaded rods onto my tangs, and that everything would kind of stay nice and centered. And then when I was done brazing one side, I could flip it around without having to take everything apart. It works really well. It's one of those things that I probably wouldn't give up. So let's get that in there like that. Okay, everything's locked down, so now we're ready to braze. The next step is I need to connect the holes in the handle from the slot in the front, and we need to make a hole in the back so that we have a slot all the way through so that I can connect it with the Corby bolt. So the drill bit that I'm using, it's a step bit that I bought when I purchased my first set of Corby bolts. And I think it's like 3/8 by 1/4, somewhere around there. But anyway, I've got a little collar to stop it just deep enough that I can take a little bit off the end when I'm cleaning up the butt end of the handle. So anyway, the first thing I need to do is I set this up so that the tip of my drill bit hits the center of this little slot, which this will fit just like this over the center of that. So when I center this to that and I put this over the top of that slot and I drill straight through, it's going to make me a slot or a hole that goes directly down the middle and meets everything up in the center of the handle. So I've got this situated. Let me lock this down. And then we'll get this centered on here, about like that. And then I made a mark on the back so that I had a perfect center. And then I put a punch in there so that it will grab the tip of this bit. And then we can go through, do a little test here to make sure we're staying in the center. Yep, I think we're pretty close to where we need to be, so we should be good. And then we just have to drill all the way through until our collar hits. Like that. And then one thing we have to do is, I feel like that may have shifted one direction just a hair, which annoys the crap out of me. I don't know why it does that, but probably the wood. Anyway, it's still good. So this fits right in that hole, but this little bit right here isn't long enough to go all the way through and connect, so we just have to grab a 1/4 inch bit. Sorry, a 3/16 inch bit. Lock it down and then just connect those holes. Simple as that. Now, we've got a handle that will slide all the way through and then connect on the back side. From this point, I'm going to clean this handle up to 400 grit, all on the 2x72. Boy, that abalone stinks. Throw a 220 on, and I'm just going to do this up to 400 on the grinder, and then I've also got to clean up this the bolster. Got to be really careful with it so that you don't re-angle this, because at this point it's exactly, the angle is exactly where I want it to be. So with the bump in the belt, it's can be a little tricky. but we'll get it. Yep, so after you clean this up, just put your knife back on it, make sure you're still where you need to be, and don't do what I just did right there. Okay, so we're all cleaned up right there. I'm gonna go test fit this again. Okay, we're still good, so I'm just gonna go through here, clean up all my facets with the 220, make sure I get all the scratch marks out of the aluminum. And then on the 220, when I'm doing these facets, I roll it just a little bit to give it a little bit of a curve. To me, it just makes it a little bit more comfortable. And then one more thing I do when I get up here to my 400 is after I do the flats, when I get to my facets, I do a really light roll over the edge just to soften that up just a little bit. I mean, you can really do that as much as you want. I do just a little bit is all. I don't want to soften it up too much and wash away those lines. But at the same time, I want it to be really comfortable for the person that's using it. So you can see I still have my hard lines, but they're a lot nicer to the touch. So with this all sanded up to 400, we're done until it gets put on the knife, because the rest of this is going to be hand sanded, and it's much easier to hand sand this handle once it's on the knife. That way I can actually lock it down into the vise, and then we'll get that up to where it needs to be and polish it. There's one more step with the 400 grit and the grinder, and that is on the bolster side. We're going to take the edges off of the front of here, and you can do this flat just to make little chamfers on the edge here, but I like to make it look like there's kind of little scallops. So I want there to be a little bit of give, so that it kind of gives me a rounded chamfer, if that makes sense. And it just takes a little bit. It's a really light touch. And I'll have to go around this a couple times because I don't always have the right angle, so the lines kind of don't match up sometimes. So right here, and this is honestly, it's a very light touch. You do too much and too much is going to come off, and it's going to be a little odd looking. All right, I gave this a little touch on the buffer because this handle will be buffed, but this bolster area is pretty hard to get when it's on the knife, especially when you don't want to buff the finish off of the blade. So we're almost there. All right, we've got one more step before the hand sanding starts, and that's knocking the edges off of this spine here. So I've got the 400 grit on here. I'm just gonna roll through and get this spine all prettied up. Got one little spot where I nicked it with a high grit, or with a low grit. So I gotta get that cleaned up. Probably can't see it, but it's right there. And then also just got to knock the edges off. Feels good to me. And the last little bit is we just have to chamfer these corners as well. Just check it with both hands to make sure everything feels good. And yeah, feels good to me. Don't worry, this part will be quick. I just wanted to go over my little hand sanding setup really quick. So I just use a 2x4 in a vise. In this case, I'm basically just popping it on here like this. I take my little set of vise grips, clamp it down, grab whichever stick I'm going to be using. In this case, I'm doing 400, and at 400 I move up to the rubber backing. I grab my little sanding sheet cutter. Cut my strips at the size I need. I have this set so this will cut in 5 even sections of one full sheet of paper, and it's like 2 inches, I think. I can't remember the exact measurement. I do have a video on the making of this. I'll try to remember to link it up here. If I forget to put the link up here, which I do sometimes, it's in my library. It's a very useful tool. So I take my 400, pop my sandpaper on my sanding block. I've tried a few different things. I tried this Orion sanding block for a minute, but that's kind of a hassle, to be honest with you, because you have to, like, first of all, you cut 1-inch strips, which I don't like, and then you have to feed it through here, and then when you're done, you have to, like, press it down on this side, feed out some, pull it in. I don't know. It's just pretty cumbersome to me. Like, what I do is I just hold it like this, give a little spray, and then just rub back and forth like this. I mean, standard hand sanding. We all know how to do it. We all love it, right? And a wipe. Check my grains to see what's going on. I'm at 400, so I'm doing an angle here so I can make sure that all my 220 grits are gone, or my 220 scratches are gone. Once I'm ready for a new chunk of sandpaper, I just move it to that line, fold it over again, and I'm good to go. So I like how quick it is. But anyway, that's pretty much all I'm gonna show you with this. Once I'm done with this 600, I'm gonna once I'm done with this 400, I'm gonna put a 600 on, do my scratches this way until these 400s are gone, and then I'll be done with the hand sanding. I realized two things. The first is I already have a video on how I do my maker's mark, so I will post that or link that right up here if you want to watch it. It's still pretty relevant. It's one of my older videos, so it might be a little harder to watch than this. It's hard for me to watch anyway. But information is still relevant. I don't see why. I don't see myself making another one right now. If things change, I'll make another one. But anyway, the other thing I forgot to do is I've got the handle fit up. I typically do all this before I do my finish sanding, but I have to cut this threaded rod off to the correct distance, or that's not going to be doing any good. So let me walk you through that really quick. All you got to do is have a pencil and something to mark with. So I take my calipers, I take the butt end of the calipers, I don't know, the depth gauge, I guess. And basically what I do is I put it in the hole that I drilled, and I butt it up into the step, the shoulder in here, and then I just drop this down so I know how deep the hole is. So I'm going to lock that, and then this is going to be a little difficult to do with one hand. Let me see if I can. There we go. I think I might be able to get this. Okay, so I've got that, and then I need to make a little mark right here so I know where the shoulder is, right? And then I'm going to take my Corby bolt. I can also measure this if it's easier, or you can also measure this if it's easier for you. But anyway, I'll take this and I'll line my step up, or the shoulder of this nut with that line that I just drew. So if I put my pencil down there, I can't really see it because I'm trying to video this and then do this at the same time, but I'll just put pencil there, make a mark like that, and then I know that it starts right here. So this will stop at this line, this will stop at this line. So I know that I need my threaded rod to be deeper than here, but more shallow than here. So it really, like, you don't want to be really close to this line, because if for some reason the threaded rod doesn't go all the way into here, then it's gonna stop prematurely. You'll still probably be okay, but yeah, it's not the best idea. So what I typically do, and if you want to, you can thread it onto your thread your Corby bolt onto your threaded rod first and measure how deep it goes. That also works. But what I'll do is I'll usually find a spot halfway in between and make a mark. I'll usually err toward the back side, just go a little bit longer, because you do want to be able to grab a hold of that threaded rod. So now what'll happen is you'll put your knife into here, and then you'll start putting this in, and then about here it's going to grab, and then as you tighten it down, it's going to suck the knife in, it's going to suck that in, and then you're going to have a nice tight fit. So from here, yeah, I like doing all this before I've sanded the knife, just in case. I don't want to mess things up when I've already got things halfway done. But anyway, I'll take this and I'll butt it up to, I'll butt the shoulders up to where they're gonna stop, and then I'll come up here and then I'll make a mark on this threaded rod about the distance that it needs to be cut off. So what I'll do is I'll cut this off a little long, and then I'm gonna grind a taper onto it, almost like a pinpoint, so that when you pop this in, it's got a little point that's gonna fit right in here and then auto center itself. And then when you start threading it on, it's more likely to hit the middle of your bolt or your nut. Instead of like a flat edge, it's gonna hit the edge of the nut, and then you're gonna be struggling to get that centered and started, if that makes sense. So let me do that really quick and I'll kind of show you what I mean. You can see that I've ground like a little point into it. I mean, it's not like needle fine, but when you put this on, it's less likely to hit right here and get bound up than it is just to kind of hit one of the sides and then auto center. And then once it's on there, you just thread it right in. And then what I can do is I'm gonna thread that so it's snug. And then I'm gonna, again, hold this up to the shoulder and then go up here. And if I look here, I can see that the shoulder of my Corby bolt is past that line. So that means I've got everything where it needs to be. So if I put this on here and give it a couple threads in like that, and then look at it again, see I've got plenty of distance that I can grab a hold of the threaded rod and get a nice tight connection, and then still turn it down until I hit that shoulder. Hopefully that all makes sense. I confuse myself sometimes, but it's just how I do this. It ensures that it's going to be where it needs to be. The test fit, you can do a test fit actually thread this on here if you want to, but if your hole is as snug as it should be, once you get this in there, it's a pain in the butt to get back out. So I usually don't do that. When I'm putting this together, if I find that things aren't quite where they need to be, then I'll just pull it back apart and deal with the epoxy mess at that point. But this has worked out really well for me since I've been doing it, so I have no problems doing it this way. Okay, with all that blabbing done, I'm gonna go get my mark on this and etch it. If you want more information on the coffee etch, I can do a separate video for that. Just let me know down in the comments. That'd be a pretty quick video, so if you need help with that, I can help. There we are. We got the maker's mark put on here, and this thing is all coffee etched. You can see that cool pattern peeking through there. Everything's pretty centered. I mean, we might be off just a hair in spots, but it looks pretty good to me. So with this done, we are ready to get this handle glued up on there. The first thing I want to do is cover this with some painter's tape, just so we avoid any accidents. I really don't want to have to etch this thing again when the handle's on. When the handle's not on, it's really not that big of a deal, but It's extra work. Who wants to do that? Okay, I'm not going to worry about trimming this to size. It really doesn't matter too much. That only matters really when you're doing Kydex sheaths, or if it just bothers you. Get it off there. Got this little silicone mat at Lowe's. It was back in their little clearance section for like $5, so I just grabbed one. I've got no opinion about it yet. I mean, it's silicone, so. Alright, so I have one little trick to show you. If I didn't have any little tricks, I would just glue this up and then walk away. Because you don't need to watch me glue anything up. We all know how to do it, I think, maybe. That's probably more than enough. I've actually got 3 handles to glue up, so I'm just kind of making one big batch. 2 of them I want to have some black epoxy in, and then one of them just regular, just clear, well, as clear as epoxy gets. Natural, I guess. So that I can, if there's any gaps up at the bolster, it'll kind of fill them in a more natural way, or a more natural look. So really quick here, this is the secret, these little syringes. You can get the smaller ones and the larger ones. But basically, I use this to inject the epoxy into the handle. So when you have a handle like this, you can just pop this in here like this. So first you fill this up with your epoxy. You pop this down here in the little handle like this. You just kind of make a nice little tight seal, and you just whoop, inject it in there like you're basting a turkey. If you don't have this hole in the back and you only have a slot up top, everybody knows how hard it is, how long it takes to get that epoxy into that slot. It's kind of a pain in the butt. So what you do is you get a little piece of heat shrink and you pop it on here like this, and you shrink it up so it fits snug around this little snout, whatever you want to call it. Then when you put it in, you can take this, slide it down into the slot like that, as deep as you need to go. And then with this connected to that, you just squirt the epoxy down in there. So as an example, I'm just going to show you on this other handle really quick. Get this started on here. Hope this isn't too big of a piece of heat shrink. Shouldn't be. No, there we go. Oops, that might be, it might be too big. But I'll just have to hold this on there. So I'm going to show you with this one just really quick. I might have to do this a different way, but anyway, so you can see that's in there, and I'm gonna hold this because I think this piece of heat shrink might be a little bit too big, and then I'm just gonna start pressing this stuff in here. And it looks like it's starting to peek up through the top. Yeah, it's starting to seep up through the top, so that kind of tells me that we should be good to go. All right, and then really quick onto the actual knife we're working on. I gotta get some black in here. So I want this epoxy to be black. And if you're looking for some color so that you can color your epoxies, this is actually Alumilite coloring or dye or whatever you want to call it, but you can also get any powders really that are used for coloring resins. There's a million different companies out there that make them, and you can get them really cheap. Don't go out and buy super expensive stuff because some well-known knife maker told you that it's the best. I mean, it's powder. It's dye, that's it. I don't see how one is better than the other. I mean, it might be for resins, like if you're trying to get a specific color and certain colors are just crappy and other colors are good. I do have resins that, you know, some companies make better colors, like cool looking colors, brighter, whatever. But I mean, this is epoxy. It's all basically hidden. So just get the cheap stuff. It's gonna do exactly what you need it to do. Alright, almost got all this crap in here. Okay, and of course I have epoxy all over my hands already, so I'm gonna make a mess. Alright, so like I was saying, just gotta pop this in here, kind of make a decent seal on the back. Here we go. It's coming up through the top. Now again, just grab your knife, coat the tang, put it all together. So I'll finish this up. You get the picture. I just wanted to show you that little trick with the syringe. So I'll get this finished up, and then basically it's just got to cure, and then we can clean up the backside, and we've got ourselves a finished knife. Let's kick this stuff on. We're all glued up. You can see here on the end, we just got to take care of this, shape the end. I like doing the butt end on the either a slack belt or a rotary platen. If you have a rotary platen, I'd use that. You get a little support, but I like to kind of round things up a little bit, have a little curve going both ways. And again, sorry about the microphone cutting out. We basically just have to take this down until we get rid of that line in the nut. Alright, we put the next grit on here. I just use that grit because I don't want to heat this up too much. It really wouldn't matter a lot if you burned out the epoxy in the butt end of this, but I'd still rather not. And as you're rounding it, you just want to make sure that you're not shooting it off to an angle unless that's what you're after. basically just work through the grits until you get the back end of this all pretty. Okay, we are finally on the last step of this build, and it's basically just the hand sanding. I mean, it's probably fine, but I just want to take this up to 1,000 grit before I put it on the buffer, and yeah, that'll make it so there's fewer scratches, I guess, if that's what you want to call it, to collect gunk from your hands, and these will stay pretty a little bit longer. So I'm just going to go through with a 600 grit with a soft back. If this was steel, I'd be using a hard back. But because the aluminum sands a little bit easier, we're just going to stick with the soft back. This will be a pretty quick process. But again, you don't have to sit here and watch me do this whole thing. So I'll get this finished, and then I'll meet you over at the bench. Minus the sharpening and then waxing the blade or oiling the blade, and then putting a finish on the handle, which I usually use a paste wax. This thing's done. So I feel like it turned out rather nice. Let me peel this off of here so you can get a good look at the whole finished product. Again, it looks a little bit better when it's all coated up with an oil and whatever finishing product you put on here. Brings out the deeper blacks. Man, I hate when that happens. All right. So here it is in all of its glory. So as you can see, that Damascus pattern is so cool. It's so unique. With a lot of canister stuff, it's kind of the only way you can get that pattern. You know, like fish hooks and ball bearings and stuff like that. Yeah, I think it turned out pretty good. So I'm just going to carefully set this down right here so I don't have to fix any scratches. So with this being complete, I can finally focus on finishing up my knives for Blade Show Texas, which I will be there this year in March. So it'll actually be pretty close to about the time you're watching this video. I could do the math really quick, but it'll be close. With this done, it completes the series. I'm gonna get some other knives started, and then I'll make another video on how I do my maker's mark. That was a requested video by somebody. Sorry, I can't remember your name off the top of my head, but I'll get that made. I know I've done one before, but I think it's hidden in one of my other videos. So that should be a quick one. And if you have any requests for any other videos, you know, pop a request down in the comments. And then also, I'm going to take a bunch of clips from this whole series and turn it into one video for those of you who may just want to watch the whole process, or the complainers that post comments about, oh, nobody wants to watch that. Anyway, maybe someone will want to watch it the other way I'll post it. But again, as always, thank you very much for your support, and thank you for stopping by, and we will see you in the next video.